I was like, I think the girls need to do the rest of the competition without me. And they were like, I promise you, you're fine. We watched you warm up. And I said, no, I know I'm going to be fine, but I can't risk a medal for the team. So I need to call it.
What is happening at the Olympic Games? They're dropping like flies. Athletes taking time out, quitting so that they can focus on their mental health. A lot of athletes have had their say on the matter. I know Piers Morgan weighed in with his twopence worth, and he knows just how it feels to be a young black female athlete. So if he can have his say, why not I? And I was never much of an elite athlete, but I competed in sports, and I would say the mental side of sports competition was a weakness for me, and I struggled greatly with nerves, and mainly boxing and mixed martial arts. In the build up to a fight, I would have anxiety, I would struggle to get to sleep, and that would hinder my performance when it came down to it. And in sports like boxing and martial arts, you have some athletes who do very well under pressure and others that cave in. Some guys are great in the gym, they're great in sparring, and then they get under the spotlight and they just capitulate. And I think, although it did cost me, I found ways of coping with the pressure. And the more that you compete, the more this pressure eases off and you get used to it, but it never completely goes away. The nerves are always there, and maybe you need that, and maybe some people can tap into that nervousness to raise their game. And I can't imagine the pressure of competing at the Olympics, the pinnacle of international sport, and the kind of pressure that that would bring. And it was a different year this year, and the lack of crowd made things different. And maybe for someone like Simone Biles, this was just something that she felt she couldn't cope with. And gymnastics as a sport must bring an incredible amount of pressure. These athletes have to remember a certain routine. If I'm getting in the ring, there's no script. I might practice certain combinations and certain techniques, but there's no script, there's no order to remember. And gymnasts are up there on their own. People talk about boxing being quite a lonely sport, and it's not a team sport. You're in there on your own, but you're not on your own. You've got your opponent there with you, and many opponents go on to become great friends, and you've got the referee in there protecting you. And in boxing, if you're feeling the pressure, if it's not going well, you can cover up, you can coast around, you can take a breather for 30 seconds, you can tie your opponent up. You can't do that in gymnastics. You have to get up there and perform your routine. And there's no get out clause. There's no one going to save you. There's no referee going to step in if you feel like you're in trouble. And in a martial arts context, in a mixed martial arts context, you have the ultimate get out clause, and that is the option of tapping out. I mean, you'll lose the match, it will cost you the victory, but the option is there. And no one ever criticises a mixed martial artist for tapping out. Well, people that don't know what they're talking about might criticise Conor McGregor for tapping out to a rear naked choke, but generally no one criticises the mixed martial artist who finds himself in a situation where his opponent has rendered him incapable of continuing and he taps out. Boxing struggles with this and the notion of quitting, and a while back Daniel Dubois had to give up due to the damage to his eye that he received during his contest with Joe Joyce. But we mustn't criticise athletes when they are in a position where they feel that they cannot continue. So I'm not going down this road of heavily praising these athletes who have quit mid-games. Simone Biles being the one that springs to mind at the moment. Naomi Osaka also pulled out of a tennis tournament, and there's been a couple of other prominent athletes citing this example and needing to quit or take time out due to their mental health. But it just shows you how important that mental side of sports is. I think most athletes will tell you their sport, it's 80-20, 80% mental, 20% physical. It shows you how important it is. And maybe the athletes that haven't pulled out, that are still hanging in there under that pressure, maybe they have better mental health, maybe they trained their mind in a more efficient way than these athletes who have felt the need to pull out. But then again, I think there is a correlation between the very elite athlete and the slightly imbalanced mind. If I think about some of the great geniuses, the top athletes in sport, a lot of them could easily become unhinged, could easily fall into bouts of depression, could easily fall into gambling and drug addictions. I'm thinking Tyson Fury, I'm thinking Paul Gascoigne, Mike Tyson, Diego Maradona. Sometimes if you are able to operate at the pinnacle of sport and you are an elite athlete physically, there is something about that personality type that makes these people slightly unhinged. Maybe they're highly strung. But it just shows you we all have to focus on not just our physical health, but our mental health also, maybe even, and dare I say it, our spiritual health.